When a casserole is not enough, extremely practical tips for building extended communities of care with me, Kelli Dunham. This would ideally be a workshop where people are chatting back and forth, but since not everyone can access it, time and privacy and all that, just providing this as kind of an adjunct. So this does contain references to situations involving queer and trans people because that's who I am and that's the situations I know best. But everyone needs care at points. We all have the capacity to give care. So if you're a human, which probably you are if you're watching this on YouTube, I know my cat occasionally watches YouTube videos, but if you're a human, this workshop might be helpful for you. I'm a nurse, a comedian, a speaker, a writer, and I've been thinking about LGBT health since lesbian dinosaurs roamed the earth. That is really I was going to say that's not hyperbole. Of course, that is hyperbole, but I have been doing it for a long time. When I first was still in nursing school, it was like, people would say like, you look gay. Would you like to talk about LGBT health? There was really not very much, there was hardly any research. And anyway, so I have that kind of background. Also, I lost two partners in a row to cancer. I know, don't stand next to me in a lightning storm. And one of those partners was Heather McAllister, who had a whole like 300-person listserv, the Love Troopers, on folks to support her. So she taught me a lot about building extended communities of care. So all that experience, I know what I know. But this is an ongoing collective conversation. There are areas that I might not observe because of my own privilege, and also just that I can only have so much experience. So ongoing conversation, not the end. Let's frame this presentation with the following. I think these are facts. You don't have to love your body to take care of it. Like there's emphasis in the early days of body positivity. There was a lot of, oh, you've got to love your body. You've got to love your body. Yeah, capitalism and our transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic world is at war on many of our bodies. Are you going to love your body? No. But that doesn't mean, I'm not saying you can't possibly love your body, but there are many of us who are not going to quite get to that point. But you can still take care of it. That's kind of a whole different discussion, but it's part of the framing of this. It's all about harm reduction. Healthcare trauma is real, and it's a real reason why lots of people don't access healthcare. And also, I just remind you, it took what it took to get you here. If you've made decisions that were self-destructive or caused harm to you because you just needed to get through your baby queerdom or whatever it was, and it took what it took to get here. We're figuring it out together, and this won't be the last conversation. Widening the circle. Now, when we talk about our strengths as LGBT or queer folks, this is older research for probably L and G folks, about caregiving and our strengths. We've been making our own families for always, right? I don't know that it took research to tell us that, but that's true. The research says we don't cling to gender roles. I'm like, yeah, most of my friends do not cling to gender roles. They like kind of explode gender roles. And also, we know how to organize, And we know part of the framing of this workshop is that we know that partners aren't always the best choice for healthcare proxies, for caregiving, for healthcare strategizing, and even for healthcare bullying, or shall we say persuasion, right? That can be a lot of emotional labor on a partnership. And doing things in an extended way is usually much better for the caregiver and the care receiver. So why widen the circles? It's not just about widening. It's about changing the perspective that everyone has a need and everyone has something to give, which of course I did not make up. That is all disability justice. Thanks, disability justice. So the simplest thing, if you just want to widen the circle a little bit, take it back to Boy or Girl Scouts, which I guess is not how they spell it. Find a healthcare buddy. Just one person, a friend. And what can this healthcare buddy do? Help you craft a better taking care of body business plan, right? Like what you're going to take care of first, what's the next thing, go with you to appointments, talk with your insurance company. If you have an angry friend, and we all have angry friends, sometimes I am that angry friend, somebody else talking to the insurance company on your behalf can be really, really helpful. They can encourage you, friendly competition. Hey, who can go to the dentist first? Who can get a pap smear first? That doesn't work with everybody, but with some folks it does. Troubleshoot with you when an encounter is going poorly. Sometimes a healthcare buddy might be a healthcare proxy. You can help you find a provider. They can help you find a provider who meets your needs. All my providers have recommendations from friends, and distract you while you're waiting. And remember, the healthcare buddy doesn't have to be your best friend or your romantic partner or in your polycule. It's not that's emotional intimacy can sometimes get all mixed up in there. So it's more about the compatibility, and often that you can do it for each other, right? That this is a reciprocal arrangement. And this is from an older zine, so I have Comic Sans, although I'm saying it's for nostalgia purposes. Most important and very ideal functions of group or mutual caregiving, widening the circle. Everyone does what they're good at and enjoy doing. That's the number one. I don't know if the number one, but that's one of the very important things. And that they have the information they need and at a time when they are at their best. Now, that, of course, is ideally, but that is like the top function of what we would want in an ideal, I don't know, it's not an ideal world, in an ideal situation. In other words, it's all skill matching is the key. Nobody ever sees a key that looks like this anymore, but skill matching is key. Example, okay, if you have a night owl friend, they shouldn't be the one to take you to an 8 a.m. appointment, or ask our least detail-oriented friend to help us design a spreadsheet. Also, because there is somebody interested in helping you out for whom designing a spreadsheet is a dream come true. These people exist. We know they exist. They're not me, but they do exist. Now, the thing about it is when you widen the circle, you do give up a tiny bit of autonomy, right? Nobody does it exactly like you. And that's just true. You want to give, and we'll talk about this in a minute, you want to give feedback, but it won't be exactly the way that you would do it. So first, take stock of your current resources. Who do you have that's currently helping? Who do you have that, and what kind of mainstream or system resources do you have? And what are your needs right now? And what are your needs likely to be in the future? Think about what times of the day are most difficult. What tasks and responsibilities are particularly difficult for you to squeeze in, and or if you're the person receiving care, do yourself. And what feels like it's being perpetually left undone because, first of all, you need that thing done, but also something that's always nagging at you is really hard on, it definitely doesn't give you any dopamine to always let something, for something to always be slipping through it. I think it's not great for your brain chemistry. I'm not sure there's research about that, but I think we know that that's true, at least anecdotally. Where in your life is caregiving or lack of care most impacting you in career, relationships with children, etc.? And how does that happen, right? So you have some ideas of where you would like to widen the circle. And then who can help? The logistics of finding the wider circle. First of all, anyone who has said, how can I help? They said it. Perhaps they didn't mean it. Perhaps they're full of crap, but also maybe they did, right? So other places that we can find support. 12-step groups, 12-step groups that are open. You can go whether or not you are struggling with that problem, if you go in good faith. So, but again, that's open groups. And there's also lots of different 12-step groups, and many of us struggle with a lot of different things, right? Liberal or inclusive churches, the keywords are open and affirming. Local chapters of disease-specific organizations, interest group, hobby groups, businesses that take a lot of LGBT money, like people who make Birkenstocks and Subarus. I don't know who makes poppers. And also we have some medical transport ideas, which I'll put a link at the end of this to some resources. But sometimes social workers at the hospital or your healthcare provider's office have ideas. Volunteers from American Cancer Society, which varies according to location, because again, it's volunteers. Folks said that you can actually ask for a non-binary Lyft driver if you're taking like a Lyft home from something where you're more vulnerable, right? Homobiles, that's in the Bay Area. NYC, it's New York City Queer. Now I've forgotten, but it'll be in the end. And then about churches. Churches have been at war on queer and trans people, right, since the beginning of time. So feel free to use that guilt, right? People actually do want to do they want to repair some of the harm. And helping with care might be a way to do that. And so there's the Episcopal, Unitarian, the Ethical Society, open. The keywords are open and affirming. And, we say it's about church, but really any group that has a scheduled meeting every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., even if they don't call it church, is kind of church, right? Like the ethical society. Like I even perform at this group that has music at 11 a.m. Song telling, storytelling in the middle. So anything that meets, then that's at Sunday at 11. Anything that meets a Sunday at 11 is functions as a church, at least functions as a community. Um, Folks also considered coworkers. If you're in a very geographically isolated area, coworkers might be who you have, and they might be might not want to be completely honest with them, particularly if you're like a trans person who's stealth, but there might be people that you could trust. And I feel like former coworkers are kind of like the perfect Venn diagram because they know you pretty well. They have a lot of intimacy, but they're not currently at your job. In terms of widening the circles, so if, and this is very common, this was really common for me, if you're feeling like the like you were the person receiving care is really like, I don't want a lot of people seeing me in this vulnerable state, right? But you have like a couple people close to you. How the care circle can be expanded without making the care recipient feel more vulnerable is that other folks can support people on the further out circle, can support the caregiver closest to the care receiver, right? And that's another way of providing care. Like, for example, somebody could cook for the person closest to the care recipient, or do laundry. Those are two ones that are just kind of like, it's easy to step in. I mean, it's easy to step in for my laundry because everything's 100% cotton and everything can be washed in cold altogether. But I know that's not true for other folks. But those are areas in which they're like discrete tasks and can be maybe farmed out. All right, creating a structure of care. All right, the winning structure is the most simple method that works for what you need. And the most simple method is just make a list of your emotional and physical needs. And when people say, how can I help? Hand it to them. I know nobody carries around a list of anything. It might be in your notes app or whatever, but just have a list. And the list is really important because it helps you think through of your priorities. And also, I mean, this is the thing about my partner, Cheryl, when she got sick, she was not like a diva, right? So she was like, oh, I don't want to ask other people for help. And then somebody, one of her close friends who loved her very much, taught herself how to knit from a 2010 YouTube tutorial, which, not quite what they were today, and knit a pair of socks for Cheryl, and then gave Cheryl her very first pair of socks that she'd ever knitted, learning from a 2010 YouTube tutorial. And the seams were so thick, they were like walking on upside down ice skates. And then we started to call it homemade chemo sock syndrome. The idea is if you're in a situation in which you are vulnerable or need help, need care, it's good to give people very specific instructions because otherwise they might do something that is not helpful. So, choosing the simplest method. Share the Care is a book that was kind of one of the original descriptions of larger, not as much mutual, but larger care circle, widening the care circle beyond the nuclear family. It is kind of complicated, I think, but it is kind of a classic. So I'll put a link to that. That can be one thing that's helpful in terms of structuring. But the simple method that allows you to do what you want to do. For many times, I've used just a Google Calendar and a reply all email. There are some calendar apps now that are more secure. I'll put links in the resources. Other ideas, there's websites, Lots of Helping Hands, CareBridge, MealTrain. I can't speak to the security of those, but they do exist, and some people have had a lot of success with them. I've used Lots of Helping Hands myself, having just a text group and a WhatsApp group. Okay, so here we go with asking for help. Okay, not an easy thing, right? So why is it hard for us to ask for help? Well, remember this from the 70s? Maybe you don't remember because that was 30 years before you were born, but it was a commercial for Palmolive, and it was a long, complicated thing. But anyway, the person said, oh, that's actually dishwashing detergent and you're soaking in it. So the person's like, oh no. But it's hard for you to ask for help for many reasons, but also because it's capitalism and you're soaking in it. We're all soaking in it. So In terms of framing asking for help, remember, no one is an island. That's just not a literary illusion. It's the truth, the illusion. Get it? Hi, I-A. Okay, all right. See what I did there? Of complete self-sufficiency. It's just that, an illusion. Did you weave your own cargo shorts? Did you make your own iPhone? Are you generating your own electricity and growing your own food? Probably you're growing your own food. Anyway, you're not completely self-sufficient. We are very, very interconnected, and that's fine. Maybe even great. So, asking for help. It's important to ask, A, directly, no dropping hints. People never pick them up and then they get eaten by rats. Specifically. Now, we don't want to ask specifically and directly because we're afraid we're afraid of the rejection, right? But I need more help is hard for people to act on, right? I need more help. Here are some things I need. Can you help with any of them? Then people can look and also select something that might work for them. And ask for help as soon as you know you'll need it, because people need time to plan. So I know I do this myself. Often we don't want to ask for help until we really, really need it. But the same circumstance that can feel like an emergency sometimes makes it an actual emergency, and that makes it more complicated, and people don't have time to plan. So it's one of those things where I am often very guilty of this. In trying to be low maintenance, I end up being high maintenance. So for asking for help, start small. Accepting help when offered is a great baby step.